The hospital room reeked of antiseptic, a sterile scent that clawed at Ethan's throat as he clutched his little brother's hand. 16-year-old Tommy lay pale and bruised, his face a map of pain under the fluorescent lights. But his eyes still held that spark of defiance Ethan adored. "I'm fine, Ethan," Tommy whispered, voice cracking, "but don't tell Mom and Dad why they did this to me." Ethan's heart thundered. He knew why. Tommy had been beaten bloody behind the school gym for kissing a boy, and now their conservative small-town world was closing in like a noose. Ethan, 22, had spent years hiding his own truth, but seeing Tommy broken on that hospital bed snapped something inside him. He couldn't stay silent, not anymore. "I'm telling them, Tommy," Ethan said, his voice low but fierce. "No one hurts you and gets away with it." Tommy's eyes widened, pleading, but Ethan was already standing, his resolve a wildfire. He'd come out to their parents tonight, take the heat off Tommy, and protect the only family that mattered. The drive to their family's modest ranch house in suburban Ohio felt endless. Ethan's knuckles whitened on the steering wheel, his mind racing with memories of their father's sermons about sin and their mother's tight-lipped disapproval of anything unnatural. He'd always played the good son, star quarterback, church volunteer, the guy who never rocked the boat. But tonight, the boat was about to capsize. He found his parents in the living room, his father's Bible open on the coffee table, his mother knitting silently. The air felt heavy, like the calm before storm. "We need to talk," Ethan said, his voice steady despite the tremor in his chest. His father, Robert, looked up, gray eyes narrowing. "About Tommy?" "About me," Ethan corrected, swallowing hard. "I'm gay, and so is Tommy. Those kids didn't just attack him for no reason. They targeted him because of who he is, and I won't let him face this alone." The room froze. His mother's knitting needles stilled, and his father's face darkened, a vein pulsing at his temple. "You're what?" Robert's voice was a low growl, the kind that used to make Ethan flinch as a kid. "I'm gay," Ethan repeated, louder, standing taller. "And I'm not ashamed. Tommy shouldn't have to be either." His mother, Ellen, gasped, her hand flying her mouth. "Ethan, how could you? After everything we've taught you." Her voice cracked, not with anger, but with something worse, disappointment that cut deeper than any blade. Robert stood, his broad frame towering. "You're confused, boy. This is a choice, a sin, and I won't have it in my house. You're tearing this family apart." Ethan's chest tightened, but he held his ground. "The only thing tearing us apart is your hate. Tommy's lying in a hospital bed because of people like you, people who think love is something to be ashamed of." The argument escalated, voices rising like a tempest. Robert's accusations flew. Ethan was a disgrace, a betrayer of their values. Ellen's tears fell silently, her silence louder than any words. Ethan fought back, defending Tommy, defending himself, but each word felt like a brick in a wall he hadn't meant to build. Then came the ultimatum. "Get out," Robert said, his voice cold as stone. "If you choose this path, you're no son of mine, and you're not dragging Tommy down with you." Ethan's world tilted. He hadn't expected acceptance, but this was exile. "You're kicking me out for telling the truth?" he asked, voice breaking. "You made your choice," Robert said, turning away. Ellen wouldn't meet his eyes. Ethan stumbled to his room, heart pounding, and packed a duffel bag with shaking hands. He grabbed clothes, his wallet, and the photo of him and Tommy at the county fair, laughing under a Ferris wheel. He paused at Tommy's door, wanting to say goodbye, but he couldn't bear to wake him. Instead, he scrawled a note. "I'll always protect you, kid. Stay strong." As he stepped into the chilly October night, Ethan's phone buzzed. It was a text from Caleb, his secret boyfriend of 6 months, the one person who made his heart feel whole. "Heard about Tommy. You okay?" Ethan's fingers hovered over the screen, but he couldn't reply. Not yet. He needed to see Caleb, to feel something other than this crushing rejection. Caleb's apartment was a small, cozy haven in the next town over. When Ethan arrived, Caleb was waiting, his warm brown eyes filled with concern. He was 23, lean and gentle, with a smile that could melt the coldest nights. "Ethan, what happened?" he asked, pulling him inside. Ethan collapsed onto the couch, the weight of the night spilling out. He told Caleb everything. The hospital, the fight, the banishment. Caleb listened, his hand resting on Ethan's, grounding him. "You did the right thing," Caleb said softly. "Tommy's lucky to have you." "I lost them," Ethan whispered, his voice raw. "My parents, my home, everything." Caleb cupped Ethan's face, his touch a lifeline. "Not everything," he said. "You've got me, and you've got Tommy. We'll figure this out together." For a moment, Ethan let himself believe it. He leaned in, and their lips met in a kiss that was both desperate and tender, a promise in the chaos. But as they pulled apart, Ethan's phone lit up with another text. It was from Tommy. Dad knows about you and Caleb. He's coming for you. Ethan's blood ran cold. Robert was a man of action, a former Marine with a temper that didn't forgive. If he knew about Caleb, this wasn't just about exile anymore. It was about danger. Caleb, we need to go, Ethan said, grabbing his hand. Now. Caleb's apartment door slammed behind them as they stumbled into the night, Ethan's heart racing like a drumbeat. The quiet streets of their Ohio town felt menacing under the sodium glow of streetlights, every shadow a threat. Where are we going? Caleb asked, his voice steady despite the fear in his eyes. Anywhere but here, Ethan replied, gripping Caleb's hand as they hurried to his beat-up sedan. The text from Tommy burned in his mind. Dad knows about you and Caleb. He's coming for you. Robert wasn't just angry. He was a man who believed in fixing problems, and Ethan knew that meant trouble. They drove in tense silence, the hum of the engine the only sound. Ethan's thoughts spiraled. He'd come out to protect Tommy, to take the spotlight off his little brother's secret, but now he'd dragged Caleb into the crossfire. Caleb, who'd grown up in a liberal college town but moved here for a teaching job, didn't deserve this. I'm sorry, Ethan said, his voice barely above a whisper. I didn't mean to pull you into my mess. Caleb reached over, squeezing Ethan's knee. Your mess is my mess now, he said, his tone soft but firm. I love you, Ethan. We're in this together. Those words, I love you, hit Ethan like a wave, warm and overwhelming. He'd never heard them from anyone but Tommy, and even then, it was different. Caleb's love was a choice, a risk, and it made Ethan want to be braver. I love you too, he said, the words foreign but true. They pulled into a deserted diner parking lot on the edge of town, a neon sign flickering open 24/7. Inside, the smell of coffee and grease grounded Ethan as they slid into a booth. The waitress, a tired woman with kind eyes, took their order for coffee and pie, leaving them to their hushed conversation. We need a plan, Caleb said, leaning forward. Your dad, he's not just going to let this go, is he? Ethan shook his head. He's got friends, guys from his old unit, the kind who think like him. If he's coming for us, he's not coming alone. The thought made Ethan's stomach churn. Robert had always been proud of his tough love approach, but this felt different, personal, vengeful. Caleb's jaw tightened. Then we leave town. Tonight. I've got some savings. We can head to Columbus, maybe stay with my cousin until we figure things out. Ethan hesitated. Leaving meant abandoning Tommy, still in a hospital, still vulnerable. But staying meant risking Caleb's safety and his own. What about Tommy? He asked, voice breaking. I can't just leave him with them. Caleb's eyes softened. We'll come back for him. Once we're safe, we'll get a lawyer, fight for him. But right now, you're no good to him if you're hurt, or worse. The logic was sound, but it didn't ease the ache in Ethan's chest. He nodded, sipping his coffee, the bitterness mirroring his mood. The diner's jukebox played a soft country tune, a stark contrast to the storm brewing inside him. As they planned, Ethan's phone buzzed again. Another text from Tommy. They're at the house. Dad's got his gun. Ethan's blood froze. Robert owned a hunting rifle, kept it locked in a safe, but the fact that he'd taken it out meant this was no idle threat. Caleb, Ethan said, his voice urgent. We need to move. Now. They left cash on the table and bolted for the car. The night air was sharp, carrying the scent of impending rain. As Ethan turned the key, headlights flashed in the rearview mirror, a black pickup truck idling at the lot's edge. Ethan's gut twisted. He knew that truck. It was Robert's. Hold on, Ethan said, slamming the gas. The sedan lurched forward, tires screeching as they peeled out. The pickup followed, its engine roaring like a predator. Caleb gripped the dashboard, his face pale but resolute. Who's driving? He asked. My dad, Ethan said, swerving onto a side road. Maybe his buddies too. The chase was on, the pickup gaining ground. Ethan's mind raced for options. Head to the highway, lose them in traffic, or find a police station. But in this small town, the cops were Robert's friends. The road narrowed, flanked by dense woods. Ethan's heart pounded as he took a sharp turn, the sedan skidding. The pickup was relentless, its headlights blinding in the mirror. Ethan, we can't outrun them, Caleb said, his voice tight. We need to hide. Ethan spotted a dirt path veering into the woods, a hunting trail he'd explored as a kid. He swerved onto it, the sedan bouncing over ruts, branches scraping the sides. The pickup followed, but its size slowed it down. Ethan killed the headlights, relying on moonlight, and pulled off the path into a thicket, praying the shadows would hide them. They sat in silence, breath shallow, as the pickup's engine growled closer, then stopped. Car door slammed. Voices, Robert's, deep and furious, and another, unfamiliar, echoed through the trees. Find him, Robert barked. Ethan's hand found Caleb's, their fingers interlocking. Whatever happens, Ethan whispered, I'm glad I met you. Caleb squeezed back. We're getting out of this, he said, his voice a quiet vow. Together. The woods were a labyrinth of shadows, the air thick with the scent of pine and damp earth. Ethan and Caleb crouched low in the sedan, their breaths fogging the windows as Robert's voice cut through the night. Ethan, you can't hide forever. The words were laced with rage, but beneath them, Ethan heard something else, pain, betrayal. It twisted the knife in his chest, but he pushed it down. This wasn't about his father's feelings anymore. It was about survival. Caleb's hand was steady in his, a quiet anchor. We can't stay here, Caleb whispered. They'll find the car. Ethan nodded, scanning the darkness. The hunting trail was a maze, but he knew it better than Robert. As kids, he and Tommy had played here, building forts and pretending to be explorers. Now was their only chance. They slipped out of the car, moving silently, the crunch of leaves underfoot deafening in the stillness. Ethan led the way, guiding Caleb through the underbrush toward a small clearing where a creek ran. If they could cross it, they might lose Robert's crew in the denser forest beyond. The cold bit at Ethan's skin, but adrenaline kept him moving. Behind them, flashlights sliced through the trees, beams dancing like hunters. Ethan's heart pounded as he pulled Caleb down behind a fallen log. Stay low, he breathed. Caleb nodded, his face pale but determined, his trust in Ethan unspoken but absolute. The voices grew closer, Robert's and at least two others. Ethan recognized one, Mike, a burly ex-Marine who'd always been Robert's shadow. The other was unfamiliar, probably another of his father's church buddies. They're out here somewhere, Mike growled. Kid's too stubborn to give up. Ethan's mind raced. They couldn't outrun three men, not with Robert's rifle in play. But he remembered a trick from his football days, misdirection. Caleb, he whispered, I'm going to draw them off. Head for the creek, follow it north to the old mill. I'll meet you there. Caleb's eyes widened. No way. I'm not leaving you. You have to, Ethan said, his voice fierce. I can't lose you too. He pressed a quick, desperate kiss to Caleb's lips, then shoved a small flashlight into his hand. Go. Now. Reluctantly, Caleb nodded, slipping into the darkness. Ethan waited, heart in his throat, until he heard Caleb's footsteps fade. Then he stood, deliberately snapping a branch. The flashlights swung toward him. Over there, Mike shouted. Ethan bolted, weaving through the trees, leading them away from Caleb. His lungs burned, legs pumping as he dodged roots and low branches. The men were close, their shouts echoing, but Ethan was faster, his years on the field giving him an edge. He circled back toward the trail, hoping to double back to the car once they'd lost him. But then a gunshot cracked through the night, the sound splitting the air. Ethan stumbled, panic surging. It was a warning shot, high in the trees, but it meant Robert wasn't playing games. Ethan, stop running, his father roared. Face me like a man. Ethan's blood boiled. A man? He'd spent his life trying to be the son Robert wanted, hiding who he was to keep the peace. But no more. He ducked behind a tree, catching his breath, and shouted back. You want a man? I'm right here, but you're the one chasing your own son with a gun. The words hung in the air, raw and defiant. For a moment, the forest was silent. Then Robert's voice came, closer now, softer, but no less dangerous. You know, son of mine, not anymore. The words cut deeper than Ethan expected, but he didn't have time to dwell. He moved again, quieter this time, heading toward the creek. He had to find Caleb, had to make sure he was safe. The flashlights were scattered now, the men spread out, giving Ethan a chance to slip through. He reached the creek, its shallow waters glinting under the moon. Caleb was there, crouched by the bank, his face lighting up with relief when he saw Ethan. You're okay, Caleb breathed, pulling him into a quick embrace. For now, Ethan said, scanning the trees. We need to keep moving. They waded across the creek, the icy water soaking their jeans, and pushed into the denser forest. The old mill was a mile off, abandoned but defensible. If they could reach it, they could hide until morning, maybe find a way to call for help. As they moved, Caleb spoke, his voice low. Why is he doing this, Ethan? Your dad. He loved you. I saw it at the church picnic, the way he bragged about you. Ethan's throat tightened. He loved the version of me he thought I was. The straight son, the football star. Not this. Not us. Caleb stopped, turning to face him. He's wrong. You're still you. And you're the bravest person I know. Ethan wanted to believe him, but the weight of the night pressed down. Tommy in the hospital, his parents' rejection, the men hunting them. He took Caleb's hand, squeezing it. "Let's just get to the mill," he said. "Then we'll figure out what's next." They reached the mill as dawn hinted at the horizon, its crumbling walls a ghostly silhouette. Inside, they found a corner to hunker down, the air musty but safe. Ethan's phone was dead, but Caleb's had a signal. "We can call my cousin," Caleb said. "He'll come get us." Ethan nodded, but his mind was on Tommy. He'd protected his brother by coming out, but at what cost? As Caleb dialed, Ethan stared out a broken window, the first light of morning casting long shadows. He didn't know what lay ahead, but he knew one thing. He'd fight for Caleb, for Tommy, for himself. The old mill creaked under the weight of its own decay, its wooden beams groaning as Ethan and Caleb huddled in the shadows. The faint light of dawn seeped through cracked windows, painting their faces in soft grays. Ethan's body ached from the chase, but his mind was sharper than ever, fueled by fear and determination. Caleb sat close, his shoulder brushing Ethan's, a quiet reminder that they were still together, still alive. Caleb's cousin, Mark, was on his way from Columbus, a 2-hour drive. "He'll be here by 8, Caleb said, pocketing his phone. "We just need to hold out until then." Ethan nodded, but his thoughts were on Tommy. Was he safe in the hospital? Had Robert gone back to him, or was he still out there, hunting? The uncertainty gnawed at Ethan, but he pushed it down, focusing on the present. "We need to secure this place," he said, "just in case." They scouted the mill, barricading the main entrance with rusted machinery and broken planks. The back door was boarded up, leaving only one way in or out. Ethan found a heavy iron bar, gripping it like a weapon. Caleb raised an eyebrow. "Planning to fight them off with that?" "If I have to," Ethan said, his voice grim. "I'm not letting them touch you." Caleb's expression softened, but before he could reply, a distant rumble broke the silence, the sound of an engine. They froze, peering through a gap in the wall. Headlights pierced the morning mist, and Robert's black pickup rolled into view, stopping 50 yards from the mill. 3 figures stepped out, Robert, Mike, and a third man, all carrying flashlights. Robert held the rifle, its barrel glinting. "They found us," Caleb whispered, his voice tight. Ethan's pulse spiked. "The car, they must have spotted it in the woods." "Stay here," he said, gripping the iron bar. "I'll talk to them." Caleb grabbed his arm. "Ethan, no, he's got a gun." "I know my dad," Ethan said, though doubt crept in. "He won't shoot me. I just need to buy us time." Before Caleb could protest, Ethan slipped out the side door, staying low behind a pile of rotting lumber. The men were spreading out, circling the mill. Ethan took a deep breath and stepped into the open, bar hidden behind his back. "Dad," he called, his voice echoing. "Stop this. Let's talk." Robert froze, his rifle lowering slightly. His face was haggard, eyes bloodshot, but the anger hadn't faded. "You think you could just run?" he said. "You've shamed this family, Ethan. You and that boy." "His name's Caleb," Ethan snapped. "And the only shame here is you chasing your son with a gun. What happened to you? You taught me to stand up for what's right." Robert's jaw clenched. "This ain't right. You're confused, led astray. Come home, and we'll fix this." "There's nothing to fix," Ethan said, stepping closer, his voice steady despite the fear. "I'm gay. I love Caleb. And I love Tommy. If you can't accept that, you're the one who's lost." Mike stepped forward, his bulk menacing. "Watch your mouth, kid. Your dad's trying to save you." "Save me?" Ethan laughed bitterly. "By hunting me like an animal? You're not saving anyone. You're destroying us." Robert's face twisted, a mix of rage and something softer. Regret, maybe. "You chose this," he said, raising the rifle. "You chose him over your family." Ethan's heart stopped, but he didn't back down. "I chose love, and I'd do it again." A twig snapped behind him, and Ethan spun to see Caleb emerging from the mill, hands raised. "Mr. Carter," Caleb said, his voice calm but firm, "Ethan's not your enemy. He's your son, and he's the best man I know." Robert's eyes flicked to Caleb, his grip tightening on the rifle. For a moment, Ethan thought he'd fire. But then a new sound cut through the tension. Sirens, faint but growing louder. Someone had called the police. Mike cursed, glancing at Robert. "We gotta go, man." Robert hesitated, his gaze locked on Ethan. "This isn't over," he said, then turned, motioning to his men. They piled into the pickup and sped off, dust clouding the air. Ethan's knees buckled, relief flooding him. Caleb was at his side in an instant, pulling him into a fierce hug. "You're insane," Caleb said, half laughing, half crying. "Don't ever do that again." "I had to," Ethan said, clinging to him. "I couldn't let him hurt you." The sirens grew closer, and soon a police cruiser pulled up, followed by a familiar car. Mark's. A lanky man in his 30s, Mark jumped out, his face a mix of worry and relief. "You two okay?" he called. "We're alive," Caleb said, managing a smile. The police took their statements, but Ethan's mind was elsewhere. He needed to get to Tommy, needed to make sure his brother was safe. Mark drove them to Columbus, the city skyline a stark contrast to their small town's suffocating familiarity. At Mark's apartment, Ethan finally charged his phone and called the hospital. Tommy answered, his voice weak but alive. "Ethan, where are you?" "Dad came back, but he didn't say anything about you." "I'm safe," Ethan said, tears stinging his eyes. "Are you okay?" "Yeah," Tommy said. "Mom's here. She's quiet. I think she's scared." Ethan's heart ached. "I'm coming for you, Tommy. I promise." Mark's apartment in Columbus was a cluttered sanctuary, filled with books and mismatched furniture, a world away from the chaos of the night before. Ethan sat on the couch, staring at his phone, Tommy's voice still echoing in his mind. Caleb was beside him, his presence a steady comfort, while Mark bustled in the kitchen, making coffee. "You guys need anything?" Mark called, his voice warm but cautious. "We're good," Caleb said, his hand resting on Ethan's. "Right." Ethan nodded, but his thoughts were a storm. He'd protected Tommy by coming out, but the cost was staggering. His home, his parents, nearly his life. Yet sitting here, with Caleb's hand in his, he felt a flicker of hope. They'd survive the night. Now they had to build something new. "We need to get Tommy out," Ethan said, breaking the silence. "He's not safe with them. Not after this." Caleb nodded. "I've got a friend who's a lawyer. She can help us figure out custody or emancipation." Tommy's 16. He's old enough to have a say. Ethan's chest tightened at the thought of fighting his parents in court, but he knew it was the only way. "What if they try to fix him?" he asked, voice low. "You heard my dad. He thinks we're broken." "Then we fight harder," Caleb said, his eyes fierce. "For Tommy, for us. You showed him you're not afraid. That's power, Ethan." Mark joined them, setting down mugs of coffee. "I've got a spare room," he said. "You two can stay as long as you need. And I know people in the community here, support groups, advocates. You're not alone." The words hit Ethan like a lifeline. Alone was all he'd felt for years, hiding who he was, carrying the weight of his family's expectations. But now, with Caleb and Mark, he saw a future where he didn't have to hide. Over the next week, Ethan and Caleb worked tirelessly. Caleb's lawyer friend, Sarah, took on Tommy's case pro bono, filing for emergency custody based on the hospital incident and Robert's threats. Ethan visited Tommy daily, sneaking past their mother's watchful eyes. Tommy was healing, his bruises fading, but his spirit was stronger than ever. "You didn't have to do this for me," Tommy said one day, gripping Ethan's hand. "I'd do it 1,000 times, Ethan said, ruffling his brother's hair. "You're my family." The custody hearing came faster than expected. Ethan stood in the courtroom, Caleb at his side, as Sarah argued their case. Robert and Ellen were there, their faces stone cold. Robert's lawyer painted Ethan as a troubled runaway, but Sarah countered with hospital records, Tommy's testimony, and Ethan's account of the chase. The judge, a stern woman with kind eyes, ruled in their favor. Tommy was granted temporary emancipation, with Ethan as his guardian until he turned 18. As they left the courthouse, Tommy ran to Ethan, hugging him tightly. "You did it," he whispered. "We did it," Ethan corrected, pulling Caleb into the embrace. Life in Columbus wasn't easy. Ethan found work as a mechanic, Caleb taught at a local school, and Tommy enrolled in a new high school, where he joined a GSA club and thrived. Their parents faded into the background, their silence a painful but necessary boundary. Ethan sent letters, hoping one day they'd understand, but he didn't hold his breath. One autumn evening, a year later, Ethan and Caleb walked through a park, the same one from their first secret date. The leaves were golden again, falling softly around them. Caleb stopped, pulling Ethan close. "You know," he said, "that night you came out, I thought I might lose you. But you're still here. We're still here." Ethan smiled, his heart full. "Because of you," he said. "You gave me something to fight for." They kissed under the canopy of trees, the world around them fading. Ethan had lost his old life, but he'd gained something greater, a family built on love, not conditions. Tommy was safe, Caleb was his home, and for the first time, Ethan felt free. The cost had been high, but the meaning was clear. Love, in all its forms, was worth fighting for. And Ethan would never stop.